It's 8:45 and you're watching WGXA Morning News right here on Fox 24. A huge day today in the House impeachment as the impeachment inquiry is set to start on Capitol Hill. The public phase of this effort is set to kick off at 10 o'clock.
And let's go now to our national correspondent, Christine Frizzell, live with a preview on what we can expect. Good morning, Christine. It's a busy day in Washington.
Certainly a busy day, Terrell and Victoria, and the messaging war is already taking shape here with Republicans from the Senate saying, you know what, they don't even plan on watching, and Democrats saying, if you're going to watch it all, this first hour is going to be blockbuster. The new phase of the impeachment inquiry has now arrived, with top diplomat to Ukraine Bill Taylor and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent set to testify publicly today. House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff and Republican Ranking Member Devin Nunes will lead the hearings and have 45 minutes each to question witnesses, likely with the help from staff lawyers. All other committee members will get 5 minutes each to do the same. Democrats hoping taking the veil off will bolster their case the impeachment inquiry is necessary.
Those open hearings will be an opportunity for the American people to evaluate the witnesses for themselves, to make their own determinations about the credibility of the witnesses.
Republicans who have been critical of a process they said lacked transparency and due process remain skeptical.
Trying to put a ribbon on a sham process doesn't make it any less of a sham.
Over the last few days, House investigators have unleashed multiple transcripts from closed-door depositions that confirm and make more clear what was laid out in the initial whistleblower complaint, that military aid was withheld from Ukraine and that President Trump asked that country's president to investigate corruption and former Vice President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Still, Republicans continue to insist the whistleblower needs to come forward in order to make the impeachment process fair.
We're not interviewing even the whistleblower. I mean, that should raise, I think, many red flags about what a farce this is.
Now this morning, the president has unleashed a series of tweets, mostly quoting people from Fox News, but he's also raising questions about the process that's about to unfold here, asking why the Democrats should be allowed to use lawyers for cross-examination, even asking a question in a tweet that's raising some eyebrows here. He says, did that lawyer ever work for me? Which would be a conflict. So a lot of eyes, not only on what's going to be happening in the hearing, but the messaging war outside those doors. Live on Capitol Hill this morning, Christine Frizzell, Victoria, Terrell, back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Christine. Now, a lot is going on not only in Washington, but also at the White House as President Trump is scheduled to meet with the president of Turkey. Yeah. What are we expecting from this meeting? Do you think he'll be watching closely on this impeachment inquiry?
Yeah, this is a really high-stakes meeting. Now, the president has made clear he will greet Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey's president, as a friend, but there's a lot of sort of high, tense things to be discussed. Number one is a permanent ceasefire in Syria. Remember when the president announced that the U.S. troops would be leaving? Turkey then went in and invaded and attacked the Kurds, who have always been seen as a U.S. ally. Another thing here, Turkey has decided to buy weapons from Russia. This is really looked down upon because Turkey's a member of NATO. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle here on Capitol Hill have wanted to sanction Turkey for some of its actions. That also likely to come up in discussion.
All right, it's going to make for an interesting day, something that we're going to be hearing from throughout the day. And of course, we'll probably hear from some reports from all of you there in Washington. Thank you, Christine.
Moving along now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things WGXA will be covering this Wednesday. At 9:30, we'll be at Vineville Methodist Church in Macon, where a community event will take place to discuss human trafficking. Then at 11, following construction for 2 years, our cameras will be at the grand opening of the new Irving Consumer Plant in Macon. And then last but not least, at 2 o'clock, it's an exciting day at Mary Persons High School in Forsyth, as a student will be signing a letter of intent to play baseball with the University of Georgia. As always, you can expect those stories and more right here on WGXA, so be sure to follow us throughout the day, both on air and online.
Well, today's number of the day is 41. That's the percentage of Americans who don't believe the media works in the best interests of the public. 42% have the opposite outlook, according to an Economist YouGov poll. Almost 3/4 of Democrats and a little over a quarter of Republicans consider the media accurate and reliable.
If you're going outside this morning, we're still looking at that freeze warning in effect for the next hour. Outside of that, we're still going to see some places below the freezing point, but that freeze warning as issued by the National Weather Service isn't going to be there anymore. Let's go ahead and talk about our current temperatures because you're seeing these warming up. In fact, you just saw Forsyth right there go from 29 to 30. That's still going to be one of the coolest spots to start things off. Jones County is notorious for getting very low, and they're staying low. They're down to 29, and I'm looking at Macon and Warner Robins both at 30 as we're starting things off here. Now, if you travel down along I-75, you're going to see both Perry and Vienna at 32 degrees. Those areas will be warming up quickly, but I want you to keep in mind with that wind, it's going to be feeling much chillier out there as you're starting things off. Feeling like 24 in Macon. Butler was feeling like 19 not too long ago, but now they're looking at about 22 as they're starting off their day. Now, of course, if you're trying to get outdoors at any point today, you are going to be seeing lots of sunshine. That's not what we saw yesterday, but one thing we're still going to continue to see is that wind. So that could make 50 degrees feel closer to about 44 or 45 during the warmest part of the day, and I do think those wind gusts will slowly be dying on down. I think they'll be between 10 and 15 during this afternoon. Still, at this point in time, we're seeing some winds as high as 20. That's not going to be the case after we get past about 10 or 11 a.m. Now, I do want to point out tomorrow we're not going to be dealing with the same kind of conditions. This time tomorrow morning, the temperatures will already be above the freezing point, so this is really our only morning where we're seeing temperatures this extreme. And as we get into the rest of that day, I do think temperatures should rise very quickly, eventually stopping around 55 or so for that high temperature. Outside of that, I don't think we're going to be having any other time over the next 10 days dropping this low. And after we get into Friday, a lot of cloud cover is going to move in, and Thursday might even bring us some small rain chances that I'll talk about here in just a minute. But first, here's going to be a quick look at your fish and game forecast brought to you by Harrison's Body Shop. The best time for later today will be around 2:40.
Fire officials in Martinsville, Indiana say 3 people were killed in a mobile home fire this morning. According to officials, the home caught on fire around 1:15. There's no word on the victims' ages or genders at this time. Officials say no firefighters were hurt. This fire is under investigation.
Apple and Goldman Sachs are being accused of gender bias. Stay tuned for what the accusations against the tech and finance giants are all about.